Hey everybody, welcome to Advancement Live, the weekly web show for college advancement professionals. We're broadcasting here on the Higher Ed Live network, a product of EdUniverse Media. Mark your calendars, please, every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of Advancement Live, or tune in on higheredlive.com and check out the conversation on Twitter. As always, the back channel is going. We are coming to you today live from the University of Virginia. I am your host, Ryan Catherwood, and along with Andrew Gosen up in Cornell, we are your co-hosts for a weekly web show here, Advancement Live. Today, I am pleased to bring to you a show all about student send-off events. And with me today, we've got Stella Maher of Emory University, Sam Edelstein from Syracuse, and Timar from Lehigh University, to discuss one of the biggest and most popular engagement initiatives. But we can't do the first without the. But we can't do that without first giving a shout out to our sponsors. And sorry, I was just having a little bit of technical difficulty. But we are pleased to present iModule Software as our sponsor, is a leading constituent engagement management provider for educational institutions. iModules, our friends at iModules, delivers an integrated online platform that transforms how institutions strengthen constituent relationships and achieve fundraising success, and we are incredibly thankful to have Fred Weiss and his team at iModules as sponsors. So right now, colleges and universities across the country are what I like to call in the weeds, right? What does that mean? Well, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know what that means. That means that you're wallpapered, and that means you've got a lot of tickets, a lot of stuff to do, and things are flying around everywhere. So if you work in alumni affairs somewhere around the country, you are quite possibly wallpapered right now with stuff to do. And that's because it is student send-off season. And student send-offs are a big initiative at many institutions, and they're typically organized through or around regional alumni clubs or chapters, and designed to bring new students, returning students, their parents, selected alumni, and sometimes the entire chapter together, basically, and often at a private residence. Some of these events are barbecues, sometimes they're held at minor league baseball games, sometimes maybe a bowling alley, but we're generally talking about hot dogs, hamburgers, barbecues, and some good camaraderie. Here at the University of Virginia, we put together about 80 send-off events around the globe in tandem with our UVA Clubs program and the Cavalier Admissions Volunteer Network. They're a huge initiative, and they are a lot of administrative resources put into them. But, you know, what's the real goal of these events? How do barbecues at homes of alumni or parents of students involved impact our work from an advancement angle? We believe it ties together the most crucial components of engagement strategy. And we're going to talk more about that strategy, as well as the marketing and communications of student send-offs and event day best practices with Sam, Monica, and Stella. So let me, without further ado, let me introduce the show guest for today. Sam Edelstein is Assistant Director for Regional Programs and Engagement in the Office of Alumni Relations at Syracuse. He is responsible for finding creative ways to engage alumni through in-person events, online interactions, and social media. Sam works closely with the development office as well as all the schools and colleges at Syracuse to bring the best of SU to alumni around the country. Stella Maher is the Assistant Director of Regional Volunteer Programs at Emory, for the Emory Alumni Association, I should say, where she manages Mid-Atlantic and Southeast regional events. She holds a BA and Master's of Education from Lehigh University and a Master's in Higher and Post-Secondary Education from Teachers College at Columbia. I've got a smarty here. She has worked at alumni programming, in alumni programs since 2007 and joined Emory in 2012. And actually, Stella recommended I reach out to Timar at Lehigh University because Stella is an alum. Monica, our third guest, is Associate Director of Regional Programs, and she organizes alumni programs and initiatives around the country as well for Lehigh. Monica manages and recruits new volunteers to and from emerging regions to help clubs diversify their programming. She is a communications strategist as well and works in the digital and social space. So, Monica, how are you today? And I hope everyone can hear Monica okay. We had a little bit of technical difficulty with her microphone, but Monica's going to talk through some of the strategy when it comes to creating events. Monica, could you talk us through a little bit about the big picture when it comes to send-offs as an engagement activity? And Sam and Stella, can you guys talk through a little bit about your sort of the big picture strategy, how send-offs fit into the engagement picture at Emory and at Syracuse? Sam, you first. Sam might still be on mute. How about Stella? Can you talk through about?
I got it now.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, we're back.
That's okay.
So this is a part of our bigger role as alumni relations office is to kind of bring people together from the moment they start thinking about our university until after they've graduated. And so the send-offs really bring all those people together. It shows off what the alumni have to bring to people who are just entering, and so it excites them about what they will be able to see at the university, but then also what they'll get to be a part of once they've graduated.
Yeah, absolutely. Stella, sort of the same strategy at Emory?
Yeah, similar to what both Monica and Sam said, we really feel like the Emory community is inclusive of everyone. So alumni, current students, prospective students, parents, we want to give them that opportunity to all get together and engage. And we look a lot at the student to alumni transition, that -2+3, about engaging them early on while they're still at school so that we don't lose them as soon as they depart. So I think getting them from the get-go right there as their first coming to campus is great.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And if you think about it, it's really one of the few initiatives throughout the year that alumni, parents, students, and perhaps even friends of the university are able to come to together. Just by the nature of the school year, the students are away for college during the year. So it's one of the few events that really connects a lot of different goals and constituents in one event. Monica, for your send-off events, where are they? How many, and what are the goals of your events? And I can't hear Monica at all. So Stella and Sam, could you guys pick up a little bit on your goals and your programming for how many events and where?
Sure. So we have almost 40 this year. I think it's 38. They all go throughout the summer. The first one is this week, actually, and they'll go through about mid-August. And our goal is to bring on as many people as we can. Parents, alumni, friends, and obviously incoming students to show off what the university has to offer, prepare students for what they may see once they get on campus, prepare parents to be ready to say goodbye to their students as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at the University of Virginia, we have, as I mentioned, over 80 events both around the country and around the world, and it's a fantastic opportunity for not only the students and parents to come together, but for our administrative staff here to get to know the groups of club members around the country, the new students, to start to recognize students from different areas, to recruit them for the Student Ambassador Program or some of the other volunteer opportunities that happen throughout the year. So it's a great opportunity on multiple levels to start to introduce students, parents to the alumni network. Parents may even find themselves more attracted to the alumni network of their kids' college as opposed to their own in many instances. And so we're banking on that here at UVA when it comes to our parents. Monica, I wanted to give you another chance to reflect on the resources that you provide clubs as a result. Excuse me. Resources for the purpose of putting on these events. Yeah, and for those of you who had a hard time hearing Monica on that one, she was saying how the send-offs are not really club-driven so much as club-supported. Send-offs are organized by Monica's office with the help of colleagues and are covered by the alumni outreach budget. The send-offs are free events at Lehigh and made possible by hosts who pick up all the costs. Sam and Stella, actually, suggestions for event planning at your office when you guys are reaching out to your volunteers. How do you make suggestions as to what sort of events to have, where to have them? How do you communicate scope and scale when it comes to send-off events?
Sure, I'll jump in there. We have a slightly different model at Emory that our events are all volunteer-led, volunteer-driven, so they're totally initiatives of the local regional chapters. So we encourage them to sort of tell us the what, when, and where. What is the event they'd like to do? What date have they selected, and where is it going to be? Then from then, we help them with all the logistics of doing the registration pages, doing the marketing that Sam's going to talk about in a little bit, and really pushing their event out. Suggestions might be, just making sure that it's an event where it's easy for people to get together and network. There's either some sort of, if it's at a private home or if it's at a public event, there's a space that's designated for that group so that everyone who's here is part of this event and it's easy to approach them and go up and make introductions.
Mm-hmm. And Stella, when you guys are sending out your administrative staff, are you sending people to just events that are in Georgia or North Carolina, or how do you decide who's going to go where?
Sure. It really depends on, I guess, whether it's a very chapter-driven event or if there is a parent host. If we've gotten someone to step up and do an event in their home, then that's definitely, we want to have a staff presence at that just to help support and thank them and steward them for doing that contribution to the program. Otherwise, it really depends on the size of the market. So if it's one of our bigger areas like New York or DC where we have a lot of alumni, it's more important to have a presence there. And we sort of rotate through whether someone from our regional volunteer programs team might go and represent. Sometimes people from parent philanthropy or parent programs would be the ones to be there. I have an event in South Carolina where we have a representative from the Career Center going up. It just sort of depends. Since they all happen at the same time of year, we do try to shift and take turns so that someone obviously can't be at all of them at the same time.
Yeah, and Sam, I know that your group actually, the send-offs are connected with the first year staff, right? You have a dedicated group at Syracuse or connected with that program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a first year staff that They definitely help with some of the send-offs. They work once the students are on campus to give them programming to kind of, you know, just introduce them. So there will be a night, the first night that they're there, that they're on campus, to you know, sort of get introduced to all the different clubs and activities. They take a big class photo, other things like that. And one of the great things I think about send-offs in general is that it really does bring together all sorts of different aspects of the university. I think so often we get into silos, and this is a way to really get to connect with people who you might not otherwise work with for a greater purpose, I think, in a lot of different aspects, in a lot of different ways.
And Sam, we were going to talk a little bit about the marketing and communications component of send-offs, and you know, actually learning a little bit more about your program. It's not an initiative you guys as a group are spending a lot of times yourselves communicating about, right? That's sort of something that you're relying on for the first year office?
Yeah, so we'll work with the first year office, and they've decided that they are going to use newsletters that they send out bi-weekly to offer a whole bunch of advice, including attracting people to come to the send-offs. And then along with that, we'll do all sorts of different things like posting on social media pages. We have word of mouth advertising, and that's really first happening for the first time this year. I think that we're using this as a test to just see how well it works. Our incoming students, current students, everybody gets really bombarded with emails over the course of the year. So I think they're using this as a test to see, you know, is this another way that people can find out about it without them missing out on some other important information that they may get from an additional email.
Yeah, and here at the University of Virginia, my team probably sends out no less than 200 emails over the course of 2.5 months specifically about this program. And it's really challenging because you've got different events with various groups invited. So for example, an event in Long Island might be at someone's house that doesn't have enough room for the entire club to be invited, whereas maybe the event in Louisville does. And so it's really challenging actually to manage the registration process as well as send out emails to the exact correct constituency. More than once, and it happened at Washington and Lee, you make the mistake of sending out an email to an entire club when not the entire club was supposed to be invited. So that is something that you have to think about when you're trying to essentially have private parties and actually really narrow down who's invited to just students, returning students, and their parents, and maybe a few selected alumni. Sam, you know, in terms of working with your first year office, can you talk through a little bit more about invitations, additional email marketing? How do you monitor registration and attendance? Do you guys help give them a boost at all when numbers are low?
Yeah, so we have a system in place where people will go to a web page, so they'll be pushed to a web page from that newsletter that's sent out, as well as any of the other marketing that we're doing, and then they can select which send-off they would like to come to. Sort of like you were saying, there are people who are from all over the country, and in some cases, going to the Long Island one versus the New Jersey one may make more sense even if they live closer to the New Jersey one for whatever reason. So they're able to indicate which one they'd like to come to. Then we can pull reports on who the people are that are coming, check in on if there are more people coming than last year, fewer people, and if there are fewer people, how can we sort of boost up those numbers. And in that case, we might send a targeted email to the folks that live in a specific region.
And you know, one of the things we're trying to think about here is because at UVA we go to so many events. My colleagues and I think we have our engagement office is about 25 people, and almost everybody is assigned to go to a different club event and participate and to be an active member representing the university, help increase school spirit and get everybody excited about coming. And as marketing and communication strategists, we're trying to think about how to use that opportunity to collect content, to share to market events, whether it's a testimonial about why someone picked the University of Virginia, or maybe just pictures of the new group of students that you can use for Instagram. Are you guys thinking about how to use content as far as your web presence goes, or is that something that's sort of assigned to the first year group, or how does that work?
Yeah, we definitely think about it, and I think all of us could probably do more of it. We do rely on our clubs and perhaps the staff member that's there to take pictures, video maybe, and then, obviously, like you said, that shows off who was there. It shows how successful things were. We can use it for future marketing efforts. So I think we could do more, but we do collect photos. The other thing that we're going to try this year, next month, we're going to do a Google Hangout send-off.
Nice.
So we'll involve folks from the first year office, from the parents' office, and then an alum or a parent to come on and basically do the same thing as you would see at a in-person send-off, but that way people can watch it all over the place if they couldn't make it to their event. And then it's also archived, so you can always go back to it. So that'll be a way, it's potentially cost-saving, and it will hopefully reach a greater number of people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think anytime that you can think about how to use the technology like we're using right now to bring together a club in the digital space, I think that's a really great angle to think about a digital student send-off event. In terms of, Sam, working with the clubs and chapters to use social media, do you guys help them out in their with their tweets or sharing on Facebook, or is there any approach there?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously recommend that that's a best practice in terms of spreading the word that it's happening, and then afterwards, showing off what happened. Again, I think that this is probably a space that we could do a little bit better, just because there are so many diverse types of clubs that are doing different things, some that are more talented or have a bigger following. So it's something that we're working on, and especially, again, all the technology is relatively new. So we're working with it, but it is something that we're definitely focused on.
Awesome. And I think that there's always room for improvement, right? There's always a chance for people to think about marketing and communication strategy that you can deploy, drive people to the club's pages themselves, whether that's getting the club to create the content and sharing that on the club pages, get people to notice the event listings that are coming up, or direct mail. And Stella, I think that you mentioned during our prep that you thought direct mail was one of the more effective methods for driving registrations.
We're limited with budgets for doing too many direct mail pieces, but one thing that we encourage our volunteers to think about doing if event registration's low and they need to pump up numbers is really peer-to-peer outreach. So we're able to share lists of local alumni with our volunteers after they've signed a confidentiality form, and they can actually do direct like mail merge emails to other people in their area and say, I'm going to this event, I'd love to see you come out as well, or do phone calls to other incoming students or parents, just trying to help increase attendance there.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many cases the best solution to a problem of attendance is picking up the phone. I think that sometimes we forget that word of mouth marketing is, in this particular circumstance, maybe the best approach, assuming you've got the administrative resources to take the time to do it, or at least offer some resources to the club volunteers in terms of what to say and how to sell the event. And so I think that that's a great idea. Sam, in terms of the strategy for capturing content to the events, collecting content at send-off events, we covered this a little bit, and you mentioned Google Hangouts. Is the first year group doing that?
It's a little bit of everybody. We send staff members from different offices, in the same way as you were saying, there are just so many. We sort of see who can go, and they speak on behalf of the university as well as their office. And so some people will be able to collect some multimedia, whether it's video or pictures. Sometimes the clubs will do it. Sometimes we have parents or students or whoever who are happening to post to Instagram or to Facebook or wherever, and that's another way that we can collect it as well. We don't necessarily send someone specifically to do that, I think mostly for cost reasons, but people that go, that's definitely one of the, I guess, best practices that you would include.
Yeah, and Stella, tell me a little bit more about what Emory is doing as far as collecting content or helping clubs use social media effectively for their send-off events. I think you mentioned that you help share on Facebook as well as SmugMug. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Similarly to Sam, we ask our volunteers or staff members if they're on site to take pictures of the event, and we have an Emory SmugMug page where we share out all of the regional programs events there so people can check it out and see what the events look like. We're really trying to push volunteers to be more present on Facebook. We do have a staff member whose job is social media, so she Facebooks as Emory alumnus and tweets as Emory alumni. But if your Facebook page is overrun with Emory alumnus and that's the only person posting, it tends to look very static and staff-driven. So we're working with our regional volunteers to get them to just be more present there, taking a picture at an event and posting it live so that people see, hey, this is happening right now, it looks like fun, I should either go now or I should definitely check out the next one.
Yeah, yeah. When you are a team member, Stella, are actually going to go to a send-off event, now that we're sort of talking about the actual event day and what you can do to make a great event as it's happening, what do you guys deploy for your staff as far as delivering information about other alumni engagement initiatives? Obviously there's so many things you guys are trying to do, get alumni and parents and students to do. Do you use those opportunities to deliver messaging about other program opportunities?
Definitely. Our regional volunteer programs team is unique in that we're almost set up in a way like development officers, in that when we travel to the different regions, we actually do visits with the alumni while we're there, and we're always thinking about recruiting new volunteers. So when we're staffing an event, we definitely want to be connecting people there and making sure the event goes well, but we're also sort of working that room looking for volunteers. So in terms of delivering information, what we take to the events, our colleagues in Res Life have put together kind of an FAQ for us that we can bring that answers questions about housing deposits, registration deadlines, anything along those lines for the incoming students. We've also worked on a Welcome to Atlanta or Welcome to Oxford guide for our incoming students that has helpful hints for as they adjust to campus. At the event, I would always ask our chapter president or leader to make some brief remarks, including any opportunities for alumni to get involved locally at upcoming events. And lastly, we have a regional flyer, which we have made that we bring to all chapter events that has general information about the Alumni Association, content, upcoming event dates. It has a really cool heat map that actually shows the number of alumni living in each state and lists those out per city. So that's a great little leave behind to give people and gives them information about how to get in touch after.
Awesome. And if anyone wants a chance to have a look at Stella's flyer, she actually gave it to me in advance, and it's not pulling up on my screen share, but I'm happy to tweet it out to anybody who's interested, or Stella can as well. Monica, I want to see if I can bring you back in. I know we're having some challenges with your sound. Do you send resources ahead to use for clubs during the event day? Awesome, and I know that was challenging for folks to hear, but Monica, one of the things she relayed is that since the send-offs are not club-driven responsibilities, they rely mostly on a staff rep who manages the name tags and student gifts. Student hand guide is brought to the event, as well as a host gift. And I know that that's actually something we were just talking about in a meeting. We're submitting gifts to all of the event hosts, a nice coffee table book, and I think that that's an important part of making sure that the volunteers who are offering up their home in many cases are rewarded with something nice for their effort. Stella, what are 3 things any administrator attending a send-off ought to do or remember when they're working a room? What are some of the tips that you might have for someone who's going to go to a send-off here in a few weeks?
Sure. I mentioned earlier that kind of our main job is definitely recruitment, so working the room, getting to meet everyone, looking for alumni that might make good chapter leaders in the future. But of course, any staff member attending the event wants to just keep a general overlook on the room to make sure that alumni and students are talking to one another. I think sometimes these events, they wind up splitting off into 2 separate groups, almost like your middle school dance, where they're intimidated to cross those lines and talk to one another. So we'll sometimes make those introductions and try to find common ground to bring them together. Of course, if you see anyone who's standing alone or seems a little awkward, hasn't found someone to talk to, I make it a point to head over to them, engage them in conversation, and find a way that I can introduce them to someone else in the room to help facilitate that connection and making sure they're having a good time. The other thing I've really noticed is that our alumni are really great resources for the parents. Sometimes they might have some fears or worries about sending their child off to campus, to college, and alumni can really reassure them that it's going to be okay, the resources are there, they made it through all right, so that their student's going to be okay there as well, while the students are really there getting to talk to one another, make new friends, and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it how you framed it up as sort of an 8th grade dance situation. Oftentimes you actually do have to be proactive and make introductions, encourage people to get together, perhaps icebreaker activities in these events. Mm-hmm. Do you put limits on the number of university officials or administrators in attending an event, just by pure number standpoint?
We haven't really had such an
Open up. We actually lost Stella there for a second.
All
Sam?
of the alumni.
Oh, you're
so
back,
we're
Stella.
aware of that balance.
We lost Stella. We lost your sound for just a little bit. Could you talk us through about limitations on your send off, and if we lose your sound, Sam, you want to jump in a little bit?
Yeah, we don't really have a limit. I mean, certainly I think we're all budget conscious, and so we don't, send too many people there. There are certainly a lot of people who would like to be at each one, and I think that we're conscious of not kind of overdoing it. That said, the ones that have 10 people versus the ones that have 200 are certainly staffed in different ways, but I think I'm not sure that there's like a strict conversation about who goes. It's mostly that we kind of figure this makes sense to have this ratio.
Yeah. Here at UVA, actually, we have quite a little process in terms of assigning administrators and development officers to events. And so any event here at UVA with more than 30 people registered to it will have a university faculty or staff member attending. And in many of our biggest clubs, we actually have a provost, and in some cases, one of the deans or the football coach, or oftentimes some of our heavy hitter guests will go to send-off events. But here we actually, as a signature initiative, we sort of offer up the opportunity to our development friends as an opportunity, and they get to choose which one or request which one they might want to go to. And if that, we sort of sort out everybody's requests and things sort of filter out, and we end up sending almost at least 1 or 2 people to every club event at over 30 people. So that's about 50 events that we try to staff during the months of July and August. Stella, which of your events put on the best send-off event, and what makes it such a special event?
Yeah, it's tough to compare one chapter to another because they are all so different. We talked about that in terms of chapter metrics or chapter awards, about being careful not to compare one to another. We really focus on the culture of their region and the number of alumni that they represent in that area. But some of our best student send-off events are the ones that have the really good energy from the alumni and students in the room that are excited and enthusiastic about being there. It's always nice to have the personal touch of being in a private home, but activities can definitely help everyone to engage with one another. Definitely want to make sure everyone takes away that the best events don't necessarily mean the most expensive. It's important to have an atmosphere where everyone can genuinely engage with one another. The conversation and connection is happening between the students, the alumni, and the parents alike, so that everyone is connecting and having that good experience.
Yeah, no, I think that that's right, and I think a great point in there was that it's not all necessarily about the size and the resources. I think it's about the school spirit. It's about the location. In many cases, opening up your home to have this sort of an event is a really great thing to do, and I think it's a great opportunity for hosts and members of a club or parents to really start to open up some new doors as far as people who live in a particular region and develop a network for themselves if there are parents, for students to start thinking about using the alumni club or chapter as their future home base and thinking about lifetime engagement, or at least helping them think that way. Well, in closing up the show, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Advancement Live. We did have a couple of sound technical difficulties, but we'll sort these things out. I think Monica and Sam and Stella did a great job, and they did fantastic work preparing for the show. One of the things that I love most about engagement work is that there's no perfect solution when you're operating a volunteer management program and helping to coordinate events. Every event is different. Every volunteer has different wishes as far as their event goes. And so there's really no perfect formula when it comes to, if you're thinking about establishing your own send-off program or improving the one that you've got, in terms of what's the answer as far as the right number of alumni to have at a private event, or to open it up to the public, or how many administrators to send, or funding or marketing strategy. But I think there are, and hopefully this show gave a few details as far as best practice opportunities that you might want to try. Send-offs here at the University of Virginia are one of our signature initiatives, and they represent, from a strategic level, a few of the strategic drivers that have been put forth by University of Virginia President Terry Sullivan's office. We believe that send-offs help enrich and strengthen the university's distinctive residential culture by helping students connect in advance of their arrival here at the university and form bonds. We also believe send-offs help us pioneer a pedagogy that produces new levels of engagement and access. And I think you can probably see that coming right from a president's office as far as strategic drivers moving forward. But we feel really proud here about our send-off program. It's a big, big effort, and I think to do it right, it is a lot of effort. But the point being, these backyard barbecues are actually very strategic events. They're connecting multiple constituencies and audiences around the world. Send-offs generate a lot of school spirit and the first notions of the alumni network for students, and new relationships for alumni and parents, as I mentioned. But student send-offs have become a big part of the fabric here at the University of Virginia, celebrating the Wahoo tradition. And I know that at Emory and at Syracuse and at Lehigh, it is also a big part of being an engaged alumni or parent. So, Monica and Sam and Stella, thanks again for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I want to say thanks to my guests again, and Advancement Live, not Admissions, will be back, of course, with my partner Andrew Gosen of Cornell University, and he'll do a show about annual giving recaps, trends, and looking ahead. That's next Tuesday, July 23rd at 1 p.m. Be sure to check out the other channels on Higher Ed Live, programming dedicated for higher ed professionals. It's Ryan here from the grounds of University of Virginia. Thanks a lot for tuning in, paying attention. Come back again next week, and have a great afternoon, everybody.